Woo!
I'm currently writing a spoken words about people who died in 2010, but I'm not done with it. So I'm going to write about the people who died in 2007. And quite a few of them died. One of them was my father on March 2. The nice thing about parents is still being alive is even if when they turn out to be, even though they are assholes, there are a lot of times they will give you money when you need it, and they will help you out when you're in a jam. Since this has happened, the amount of anxiety that I experience has gone up substantially, and the number of anxiety panic attacks that I have has increased substantially to this day in 2010, but at least I'm a lot more interesting than ever before. Another person we lost in 2007 was Aaron Russo, who died on August 24. But I didn't find out about it until August 28. At the same time, I have a computer. I was having computer and internet problems, and I could not go online. They sure as hell didn't say anything about it on the news, and why didn't anyone bother to tell me? No one bothered to send me an email, give me a telephone call, or at least invest 41 fucking cents into a stamp and mail me a letter, because everyone I knew was a fucking asshole. In case you don't know who Aaron Russo was, he produced movies like Trading Places, but more recently he made a movie called America from Freedom to Fascism, which is about how corrupt and evil government is. The next person that we lost in 2007 is someone who I never met, by the name of Tom. Tom used to be my friend Tony's best friend, and Tom used to be cool before he turned into a fucking asshole. Meanwhile, my friend Tony is sexually attracted to horses, along with being into other types of perverted sex that is this uptight, narrow-minded society would frown on deeply. Tony once told me about the time when he went into a bathroom in a movie theater in LaGrange, Illinois, when a guy who just came out of the stall, and he noticed, Tony went into the stall, noticed that he didn't flush the toilet, and there was a turd in the toilet. Tony was so turned on, he decided to jerk off while looking at the turd. A lot of people think I'm weird, but even I can't get myself to jerk off while looking at a turd, but talking about it is fun. I asked Tony, how can you jerk off while looking at a turd? He told me that it came out of such a hot body, you just had to do it. Even I find the turd to be disgusting, but who am I to judge? That doesn't make Tony any less of a person than you and me, and I don't make judgments against him for jerking off to a turd because I have an open mind. Meanwhile, at the beginning, Tom was tolerant of Tony's perverted sexual desires, but what happened to cause him to turn into such an asshole? Well, Tom decided to have kids and become a father. Here's just an example of how breeding causes people to turn into assholes. However, Tom was arrested many times. Just an example of how being a parent makes you a better person. Not. But he was able to get away with it for some reason. And he was also once pulled over while driving under the influence, and he was drinking beer, and he was smoking dope when the cop pulled him over. The cop decided not to take Tom to jail, and decided to follow him home to make sure that he got home safe. I sure hope that cop is still on the police force, because a cop who isn't an asshole is becoming increasingly more difficult to find. Tom had diabetes, and it kept getting worse and worse, and on August 3 in 2007, just 2 days after the 35W bridge collapsed, Tom's kidneys crapped out, and he was shaking uncontrollably when the ambulance arrived, and he died. And he was only 47 years old. Tom thought about calling Tony to apologize for being such an asshole, but he never did. I almost met Tom on May 12, 1990, and Tony told him that I wrote a story about a guy who brings a drag queen back to life by injecting him with sperm after masturbating. And Tom said, I don't think I'm going to want to meet him. Well, there are many other people who croak who are not worthy of saying anything nice about. This next person that we lost in 2007 was the Reverend D. James Kennedy the day before my birthday, which was a nice birthday present. Once when I was in Fort Lauderdale, I saw a group of homosexuals protesting outside the church that D. James Kennedy was actively involved with, getting a gay rights ordinance overturned in Broward County, or voted down in Broward County, Florida. Meanwhile, a group of neo-Nazis were having their own demonstration across the street, right in the parking lot of the Olive Garden. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no respect for Nazis. I think they're a bunch of sick, evil scumfucks. But I find it amusing, wondering what people thought when they were going to dinner at the Olive Garden, and they saw a bunch of guys wearing swastikas. Meanwhile, the Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church is a beautiful-looking church, but I compare it to taking a turd and spraying it with gold. It looks very beautiful, but it's a giant piece of shit, and I would never want to jerk off while looking at it. I will never forget May 15 of 2007, when I was getting ready to go to the dentist because I had a toothache. And just before I left, I decided to turn on the TV, and I found out that the Reverend Jerry Falwell had just dropped dead. I was literally jumping up and down with joy. Jerry Falwell was actively involved with a crusade against homosexuality, along with his crusade to turn this country back to quote-unquote moral values after Ronald Reagan became president. It's interesting how Jerry Falwell was out to save this country from homosexuality, but I never once heard him speak out against George Bush, the first and second, along with Ronald Reagan's involvement with Bohemian Grove, where our world leaders hang out, suck each other's cock, and worship the devil. Apparently, it's okay to be gay as long as you're a conservative Republican and no one knows about it. And Jerry Falwell blamed the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on homosexuals and abortion. Well, he's partially right about that. The September 11 terrorist attacks was an inside job carried out by the guys who hang out at Bohemian Grove and suck each other's cocks, and during the cremation of tear ceremony, they tap into the energy of demons from hell as a way to be able to murder anyone they want to and get away with it. Jerry Falwell supported outlawing abortion. Jerry Falwell was once talking about people who believe that having an abortion is wrong and abortion is murder, and I met a lot of people who believe that abortion is wrong and murder. And I then asked them if they should make it illegal for a woman to have an abortion. And most people that I talked to like that have told me that it should not be outlawed because they don't want to impose their moral values on other people. Jerry Falwell once said that if someone believes that abortion is wrong, people who don't, but they don't support outlawing abortion will end up burning in hell. With that in mind, I was so happy when I found out that ugly fat fuck had dropped dead. But then again, I once read a newsletter from a gay church, and the guy wrote a letter about how he loves Jerry Falwell, despite his hatred towards gay people, and that made me think that maybe I should just feel sorry for him. I get a feeling that Jerry Falwell enjoyed jerking off while looking at turds. So he felt bad about himself, so in order to make himself feel better, he had to send his message of hatred and tolerance. And last but not least, we lost Henry Hyde in 2007. He was a total asshole shitbag, and among many other things, what he did was he cut off government funding for pregnant women in Washington, D.C. to have an abortion who were living in poverty because Henry Hyde wanted to do his part to create even more poverty and suffering. Between Jerry Falwell, D. James Kennedy, and Henry Hyde is what I would call a trifecta of 3 fewer assholes on this planet. The sad reality is there are millions more assholes who are still alive, and the next time you know someone who dies, I would be more than happy to read the eulogy at their funeral.